This is Pluto, and this may be the last image of Pluto that we will see in our lifetime. 20 years ago, NASA launched a spacecraft toward Pluto. Its name was New Horizons. After traveling through space for 9 long years, the spacecraft finally reached Pluto. What it captured with its cameras shocked even scientists. Many people later claimed that NASA canceled all future Pluto missions. But why? What exactly did NASA see on Pluto? Why has Pluto been removed from the list of planets? What is the mystery behind the famous heart-shaped region? What does its reddish color mean? And why did I say that this may be the last image of Pluto we'll see in our lifetime? What secrets are hidden on this icy world at the edge of our solar system? Hello, Ryan, and you're watching USA Pulse. Today we're going to explore Pluto, the most misunderstood and overlooked world in our solar system. In this video, you'll discover fascinating stories, scientific facts, and incredible mysteries about Pluto that may completely change the way you think about our solar system. So make sure to watch until the end. And before we begin, here's a special announcement. We've launched our podcast channel where we discuss history, science, geography, and geopolitics. If you're interested, you can check it out using the link in the description below. It was January 19, 2006. From Cape Canaveral, Florida, NASA launched the New Horizons spacecraft aboard an Atlas V rocket. Its destination was Pluto, the mysterious world once known as the ninth planet of our solar system. The spacecraft left Earth at an incredible speed. While the Apollo missions took about 3 days to reach the Moon, New Horizons crossed the Moon's orbit in just 8 hours and 35 minutes. But why did it need to travel so fast? Because Pluto is one of the most distant worlds in our solar system. On average, it orbits about 5.9 billion kilometers, 3.67 billion miles from the Sun. Sunlight takes only about 8 minutes to reach Earth, but it takes nearly 5 hours to reach Pluto. While Earth's average temperature is about 15 degrees Celsius, 59 degrees Fahrenheit, Pluto's average temperature is around minus 232 degrees Celsius, minus 386 degrees Fahrenheit, making it one of the coldest places in the solar system. The discovery created a sensation around the world. Astronomers had finally found a new world beyond Neptune. But there was one important question left to answer. What should this new planet be called? To find the perfect name, Lowell Observatory invited suggestions from people around the world. Nearly 1,000 names were submitted. Among them was one suggestion that would become part of history. It came from an 11-year-old English schoolgirl named Venetia Burney. After hearing her grandfather describe the newly discovered world as a distant, dark, and freezing place, Venetia thought of Pluto, the Roman god of the underworld. She believed the name perfectly matched this mysterious world hidden in the darkness at the edge of the solar system. Her suggestion was accepted. There was another reason scientists liked the name. The first 2 letters, P and L, also honored Percival Lowell, the man whose lifelong search had inspired the discovery. For her brilliant suggestion, Venetia Burney received a prize of 5 British pounds. After such an extraordinary history, Pluto enjoyed its status as the solar system's 9th planet for many decades. But that wouldn't last forever. In August 2006, the International Astronomical Union, IAU, officially announced that Pluto would no longer be classified as a full-fledged planet. Instead, it would become a dwarf planet. Why? To understand that decision, we first need to understand how the IAU defines a planet. According to the IAU, an object must satisfy 3 conditions. First, it must orbit a star. Second, it must have enough mass for its own gravity to pull it into a nearly spherical shape. Third, and this is the most important, it must have cleared the neighborhood around its orbit. In other words, its gravity must be strong enough to dominate its orbital path, leaving no other objects of comparable size sharing that region. Pluto easily satisfied the first 2 conditions. It orbits the Sun. It is also nearly spherical because of its own gravity. However, Pluto failed the third requirement. It has not cleared its orbital neighborhood. And that is the main reason why Pluto lost its status as a major planet. But Pluto's unusual nature doesn't end there. Unlike the 8 major planets, whose orbits lie roughly in the same plane and are nearly circular, Pluto follows a much more elliptical orbit that is tilted by about 17 degrees. Because of this unusual path, there are times when Pluto actually travels closer to the Sun than Neptune before moving back into the outer solar system. However, this tilted orbit was not the reason Pluto was reclassified. The real reason was its inability to dominate and clear the region around its own orbit. To better understand why Pluto was reclassified, let's go back to 1992. That year, astronomers David Jewett and Jane Liu discovered a new object beyond Neptune's orbit. As more observations followed, scientists realized that Pluto was not alone in the outer solar system. Beyond Neptune lies a vast region filled with icy rocks, frozen bodies, and cosmic debris. This region is known as the Kuiper Belt. Within the Kuiper Belt are countless objects, some smaller than Pluto, some nearly the same size, and a few even larger. Then, in 2005, astronomer Mike Brown discovered another distant world called Eris. Surprisingly, Eris also had its own moon and shared many characteristics with Pluto. This created a serious problem for astronomers. If Pluto was considered a planet, then Eris should also be classified as a planet. And if Eris qualified, then many other large Kuiper Belt objects would deserve the same status. Instead of having 9 planets, our solar system could suddenly have dozens. To avoid endless confusion, the International Astronomical Union revised the official definition of a planet. From that point forward, the solar system officially recognized only 8 major planets: Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. These 8 worlds meet all 3 requirements. They orbit the sun, they are nearly spherical because of their own gravity, and they have cleared the regions around their orbits. Pluto meets only the first 2 conditions. Since it shares its orbital region with many other Kuiper Belt objects, it was reclassified as a dwarf planet. So Pluto isn't completely different from a planet. It simply doesn't satisfy every requirement of the modern definition. Now let's return to the question we asked at the beginning. What exactly did NASA discover on Pluto? When scientists examined the images sent back by New Horizons, one feature immediately captured their attention. On Pluto's surface was an enormous heart-shaped region. From millions of kilometers away, it looked as if this tiny frozen world had painted a giant heart across its chest. Scientists named this remarkable feature Tombaugh Regio, in honor of Clyde Tombaugh, the astronomer who discovered Pluto. Inside Tombaugh Regio is a vast, bright, smooth plain called Sputnik Planitia. At first glance, the surrounding surface of Pluto appears ancient, covered with impact craters, towering mountains, deep fractures, and scars left behind by billions of years of collisions. But Sputnik Planitia is completely different. It is astonishingly smooth. Almost no impact craters can be found there. That immediately told scientists something extraordinary. If this region had remained unchanged for billions of years, it should have been heavily covered with craters. Instead, its smooth surface suggested that it is geologically young. In other words, Pluto is not a frozen, lifeless rock. Something beneath its icy surface is still active today. When New Horizons took a closer look at Sputnik Planitia, scientists noticed something even more remarkable. The surface wasn't perfectly flat after all. Instead, it was covered with enormous polygon-shaped cells, each stretching for dozens of kilometers. Some had 5 sides, while others had 6 or 7. At first glance, they looked like the cracked surface of dried mud. But there was one problem. There is no mud on Pluto. So what created these giant patterns? The answer is nitrogen ice. On Earth, most people have seen liquid nitrogen, but Pluto is so unimaginably cold that nitrogen freezes into solid ice. Scientists believe Pluto's interior still contains a small amount of heat left over from its formation. That heat slowly rises from deep inside the dwarf planet. As the nitrogen ice warms from below, it becomes slightly less dense and slowly rises toward the surface. Once it reaches the top, it cools, spreads outward, and sinks again. This continuous cycle is known as convection. In simple terms, the nitrogen ice beneath Sputnik Planitia is flowing like an extremely slow-moving ocean. The movement is so slow that no human could ever watch it happen in real time. But over hundreds of thousands, or even millions of years, this gradual circulation has sculpted the enormous polygonal patterns seen today. Scientists also noticed another strange feature. In some places, the surface is dotted with countless shallow pits, giving it an appearance similar to a sandy beach covered with tiny crab holes. Naturally, some people wondered, could these be signs of alien life? The answer is no. To date, New Horizons has found no evidence of extraterrestrial life on Pluto. These mysterious pits are created by a completely natural process. Because Pluto receives only weak sunlight and has an extremely thin atmosphere, parts of its frozen nitrogen slowly transform directly from solid ice into gas, a process called sublimation. As the ice disappears, it leaves behind countless shallow depressions across the surface. These tiny pits make the frozen plains look almost as if thousands of small creatures had burrowed into the ice. Scientists believe Sputnik Planitia itself may have formed billions of years ago after a gigantic impact struck Pluto. The enormous collision created a vast basin. Over time, that basin filled with frozen nitrogen, methane, and carbon monoxide. Eventually, those frozen materials formed the spectacular icy plain we see today. Just as Earth has its natural satellite, the Moon, Pluto also has a large moon named Charon. But the relationship between Pluto and Charon is unlike any other in our solar system. Compared to Earth, our moon is relatively small. Because of Earth's much stronger gravity, the moon orbits around our planet, and it is tidally locked, meaning we always see the same side of the moon. Pluto and Charon are different. Charon is unusually large compared to Pluto, about half its size. Because of this, Pluto's gravity isn't overwhelmingly stronger than Charon's. Instead of Charon simply orbiting Pluto, both bodies orbit a common center of mass, called the barycenter. In other words, Pluto and Charon behave almost like a double-planet system. Even more fascinating, they are mutually tidally locked. The same side of Charon always faces Pluto, and the same side of Pluto always faces Charon. If you were standing on the side of Pluto that faces Charon, you would always see Charon hanging in the same place in the sky. It would never rise or set. But if you stood on the opposite side of Pluto, you would never see Charon at all. Scientists have also proposed another extraordinary possibility. Beneath Pluto's thick, icy crust, there may be a vast subsurface ocean investing their resources in exploring those destinations before returning to Pluto. That doesn't mean humanity has forgotten Pluto. It simply means that, for now, other worlds offer even more exciting opportunities for discovery. Perhaps one day, in the distant future, another spacecraft will once again visit this lonely, icy world at the edge of our solar system. Until then, Pluto will continue its silent journey around the sun, guarding its secrets in the darkness of deep space. Subscribe channel. Thank you for watching.